birthday. Love the hat. Thank you. Yeah. Also went out. Haven't had a shower since I got home, so hat is on. Thank you, Sarah. Hello, Josh. How's it going? Hello. Let me just quickly check that the live streams are live in other places. Let's rename the Twitch stream because it is not qualifying. It is the full Mexican Grand Prix. There we go. The Shorts is live. And there we go. Hello, Pingo Gaming. How's it going? How are we all feeling? Happy birthday, James's mum. Thank you, Sally. She might be in it. She might not be. She does occasionally watch them. She told me that she watched the Crash Happy podcast when we were having lunch. I don't think it's her kind of scene, but she still gives it a go. Gets it a view, as you guys do as well. I should wear a sombrero. I don't own a sombrero. But maybe next year. We'll see if we can get that. I mean, I'd love to go to the Mexican Grand Prix. If I was at the Mexican Grand Prix, chuck a sombrero on, most certainly say. Thank you so much for all the happy birthdays in the chat. Appreciate that as well. I'll let her know you all said hello. Let me just get this as well. Boom. Lewis is finally getting a podium today. It's looking all right, isn't it? It's not looking too shabby, Alonso. But Ferrari always find a way, don't they? They always find a way. So let's not count our chickens just yet, you know? Let's wait until these eggs hatch before we count our chickens. How am I? I'm very, very good. The cheapest North American GP to attend. I could see that, yeah, to be fair. What, Canadian Grand Prix? I don't know. I feel like Canadian Grand Prix is probably second. I imagine all of the US Grand Prix are the worst, right? Vegas has to be the most expensive. Probably followed by Miami. I feel like the newest two are probably the most expensive. I feel like Texas is the one I'd want to go to, though. If I had to pick out of those five, Miami, Vegas, Texas, Canada, Mexico, it would definitely be Texas. But then I don't know whether Texas would be quite a difficult watch because obviously the elevation change. I feel like if you're at the top of the hill, you might see quite a bit. If you're at the bottom of the hill, you're just going to see them disappear up the hill and then not a lot for the rest of the lap. But then I suppose that's every Grand Prix, right? If you go to a Grand Prix, you don't really get to see that much of the track. Like, you got to remember, these tracks are incredibly big things. They are miles long. It is not my birthday. It is not my birthday. It is my mum's birthday. My birthday is... Is there a Grand Prix on my birthday? It is Vegas qualifying on my birthday. So we will celebrate Vegas. Oh, if Vegas... Oh, no, that's not the case, would it? I was thinking if Vegas wasn't on a Friday, it would be the other way around. But actually, it's not. We are live on my birthday. It's Vegas qualifying. Who's leading right now? Bro, can someone tell? Network issues. Is that just me? I think that might be you. The race hasn't started yet. Don't worry. We've got 20 minutes or so. I haven't even got the stream up in front of me yet. In fact, I haven't even turned my camera onto the right settings to be able to watch the live stream yet. So we have got time. Don't you worry yourself. Let me put that there. There you go. Now I can actually see the live stream. Oh, I've frozen myself. How have I done this? What have I done? I think I accidentally closed my camera software. Yep, I did indeed. Apologies. I was trying to change it. This is what I mean. I'm not good. I can't do this on the fly. I have to prepare beforehand and didn't prepare properly. Failed to prepare to fail. There we go. We're back again. Fancy? Not necessarily fancy, just sort of cobbled together with lots and lots of little different bits and pieces that we've gained over the few years, thanks to your guys' support, that slowly kind of works now. I feel like if anyone was building this from the ground up, they would not make any of these decisions. But there we are. Money on Norris today? I really, really hope so. I really, really hope so. I know it's, McLaren bias, British bias, whatever you want to say, but I've said all season long, I don't mind which of the two McLarens win the championship. I just want to see a McLaren win the championship, the Drivers' Championship, because I haven't seen a McLaren driver win the Drivers' Championship since I've been an F1 fan, right? I've seen a Brawn driver do it, then I've seen Red Bulls and Mercedes. That's it. That's like, and I feel like a lot of you will be in that same situation, right? Where you haven't actually seen a different team other than Red Bull or Mercedes win the Drivers' Championship, because they have been the two dominant teams and they flip-flopped between. It was Sebastian Vettel, and then it was Mercedes with Hamilton and Rosberg in the mix as well, and then it was Max Verstappen at Red Bull. Like, they are the only two to have won the championship in well over a decade, 15 years, 16 years. So I just want to see a McLaren driver win it. Then it's sort of, you know, which of the two would I prefer? Well, of course, considering how much work he's done for the team, and I think Zach Brown is in the same kind of situation, of course I'd prefer it to be Lando Norris. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. And I don't think Zach Brown is lying to you either, you know? I think he wants a McLaren driver to win the championship, and he would prefer it to be Lando Norris. But I think we kind of forget that Zach Brown does not have the final say. Although Zach Brown is part of it, there's not too much he can do. Like, I don't think there is bias towards Lando Norris, but I would prefer Lando Norris to win the championship. Whether you think there's a little bit of bias towards Lando Norris is up to you. But that's kind of where I sit with it all. Oh, I need to change the track map as well. Let me not forget to do that. Settings. Live timings. Track map. There we go. And radio transcriptions. Put that over there. Championship predictions. We will also need that later. There we go. First champion I saw was Farina. I mean, Josh, you've got to be a lot older of a man than I. What's my opinion on Max's role in the championship? Should we have a little look at the Drivers' Championship then? So at the moment, 19 races completed, 5 races and 2 sprint races to go. 40-point gap between Piastri and Verstappen. If it was just Piastri and Verstappen in the championship right now, my money would be on Verstappen. I think Piastri, out of the 3, looks the least likely to win the championship, even though he is now winning the championship and has been leading the championship since Saudi Arabia. I actually think he's probably the least likely driver to go on to win the championship. So do with that what you may. It was Lewis in 2020. I'm only 20. Well, there you go. How the turns have tabled. Exactly. I think, you know, Piastri leading the championship right now actually looks the worst of the 3 contenders. I know George Russell can still technically win the championship mathematically, but let's actually count him out, right? Because he is 90 odd points, 94 points behind Piastri, so reasonably it's not going to happen. I know that Verstappen was over 100 points behind Piastri after Zandvoort, but I think it's a slightly different scenario where Max Verstappen is on fire right now. If I had to pick now, with this Mexican Grand Prix yet to play out, I think it would be Norris most likely to win the championship, Verstappen second most likely to win the championship, Piastri least likely to win the championship. But again, it can change on a dime, right? All it needs is Piastri to find a little bit of form again. If you'd have asked me 4 races ago, when Lando Norris DNF'd in the Netherlands and lost 18 points, I'd have gone Piastri most likely to win the championship. Like, it changes very, very quickly from one race to another, depending on who's in form, what cars look like. And I think it's so hard to predict how it can change and how the trajectory of this season can change as well. Do I watch football/soccer? I do. A Liverpool fan. less said about that, the better at this moment in time. Four matches in a row in the Premier League that we've lost. So, falling apart. The wheels are off. Max Verstappen wins the championship. It'll be a mega botter from McLaren. Yes and no. I think the only thing that's really cost McLaren is the fact that they don't have a clear number one. I think that's just cost them a considerable amount of points in either direction. You know, if they had chosen Lando Norris as the clear number one right at the beginning of the season, say, and they hadn't given Piastri even a shot at winning the championship, I think it would have played out very, very differently. I don't think they could have done that, though, because Piastri inserted himself into the championship running, and Piastri was the better of the two drivers for the first 6, 7, 8 races of the season. I just think as the season has developed and as the season has progressed and as that McLaren car has progressed, right at the beginning of the year, it was Lando Norris who was struggling with it more than Piastri. You know, we heard Lando Norris for the first few races of the season saying the car didn't feel quite the same as it did last year. He wasn't quite sure what he was doing wrong, but the car didn't feel right. Then we come sort of further into the season. I think Lando Norris has done a better job at adapting to how that McLaren has changed and has done a better job throughout the season at keeping up with the progression of that McLaren car. Whereas Oscar Piastri, sort of since the summer break, the changes that have been done and maybe the adaptations that McLaren have had to make to the particular circuits that we've gone to, we're starting to see Piastri struggling more and more with the balance of that car. There was a little bit of a theory going around. Actually, I'd love to get your thoughts and feelings on it, that once the Constructors' Championship was all but settled, so we're talking just before Azerbaijan, where Oscar Piastri had his worst weekend by a mile, the team might have put themselves in a position where before the summer break, I would imagine that anything Lando Norris learned in free practice 1 or free practice 2 or anything like that would be shared with Oscar Piastri's side to the garage. And we did often see Oscar Piastri start the weekend a little bit slower than Lando Norris and kind of build into it as it progressed. And then sort of overtake Norris as we got into qualifying and the races, especially earlier on in the season. That was the trajectory. And that might have come from the fact that Oscar Piastri was also learning from Lando Norris' side of the garage. Now, if we're getting into and again, this is complete theory, we'll never really know unless one of the engineers comes out and says it. But what about the theory that in the second half of the season, because the Constructors' Championship is now sealed for the team, and they've kind of said, you know, they will let their drivers race, maybe Lando Norris is not sharing as much information as he was and as much information about the setups that he's running or how he's got the car balanced and things like that with Oscar Piastri. And that's why the tables have turned slightly in the second half of the season. Actually, it feels like Lando Norris is more the driver that is comfortable inside of that McLaren car. And it feels like he is adapted to it and able to get the setup in a position that he likes a little bit more. Like, don't get me wrong, he's also had a slower weekends. Azerbaijan was also a disaster from Lando Norris, in my opinion. But it was a little bit better than what Piastri did. And even like yesterday, Lando Norris looked so much quicker than Piastri and did a much, much better job of progressing through qualifyings and then putting in an absolutely sublime lap at the end, where Piastri almost felt like he could fall down a little bit and maybe even go out in Q1 and maybe even go out in Q2. So I've seen it banded around. It's an idea that kind of, you know, entered my point of view, and I was like, it's an interesting theory, you know. Certainly when the drivers have won the Constructors' Championship, there's now less of an emphasis on Norris to share all of those ideas with his teammate. But I don't know. I'd love to know your thoughts and feelings on that. Does that just seem silly? Like, if you've worked in Formula One or you know someone who's worked in Formula One, because I don't know how much of that information you can really keep to yourself, because I imagine the data and bits and pieces like that are just shared between the two teammates. Like, you have access to all of that and both sides of the garage will see the same kind of things. But it's more reasonable assumption that the sabotage comments, yeah, I don't think it's going to be the sabotage of Oscar Piastri. In no way do I think, especially because Max Verstappen has become such a player in the game, I don't think McLaren will be sabotaging either of their cars. They just want to get one of their cars across the line, because as much as, as fans, we want to see a McLaren championship or a different winner. Personally, for me anyway, I want to see a different winner to Mercedes and Red Bull, as I said before. But for McLaren, they want a driver's champion because it does just mean more. I know the Constructors' Championship is where they get their money from Formula One and their prize money from. But in terms of how much they can sell in terms of merchandise and the backing that they can get from sponsors and various other sort of bits and pieces like that, winning a driver's championship means so much more. Look at Abu Dhabi 2021. The Mercedes team won the Constructors' Championship that year. They were absolutely goddamn livid that they lost that driver's championship and that Lewis Hamilton was not the driver's champion in 2021. And Red Bull did not win the Constructors' Championship that year, but Red Bull could not care less because they won the driver's championship. It was Max's first championship and it was utterly incredible. So, like, the driver's championship is the one that people want. Red Bull isn't right. Isn't right about what? They've been very right in the last 4 Grand Prix weekends, in my opinion. Maybe Singapore, you could say, is the one slight downside, but they still came second with Max Verstappen there. And to be fair, Max still came second at his home Grand Prix as well. So I think Red Bull have been pretty spot on. Holy Yapathon. Apology. Isn't right in terms of the points. What do you mean? In the Constructors, have I messed up the points? Oh dear. Let me get out. Did I forget to change one of the point scoring places? Team standings. Red Bull 3-3-1. No, Red Bull's right. 3-3-1. Love a Yapathon. Apologies. It was just a theory that I wanted to get out. Sometimes I have these things in my head I just want to get across to you. Shall we talk about qualifying then? Let's go into it. Lando Norris does indeed start from pole position. It was an absolutely incredible drive from Lando Norris. I think possibly his best qualifying of the season, just in terms of everything coming together just at the right times and that progression that we have seen throughout Q1, Q2, Q3. I think it's something that we talked about with Max when he was sort of coming to the fore even more, and particularly in Azerbaijan, where Max just continues to progress and continues to get better and better each session, where some drivers do plateau a touch. And I feel like Lando Norris was slightly one of those drivers, didn't always see that like getting quicker and quicker throughout every single qualifying session. Like still got quicker, but not in the same way, and didn't develop in the same way throughout. So Lando Norris, yeah, triple purple, exactly. That's the best way of defining it, really, isn't it? Dominated. You get triple purple, best lap of the afternoon. Can't really say anything negative about Lando Norris's lap. Ferrari coming into it though, was not expecting that this weekend. I was expecting this to be a Red Bull strong track. Like we've seen that the Honda power unit is usually pretty decent here, even though they have to run the engines in a slightly different way because they get extremely hot in the conditions here in Mexico. It seems like Lando Norris and McLaren have found that sweet spot, and Ferrari have actually been able to find that sweet spot more so than Red Bull. Ferrari were strong here last year as well, though. You've got to remember Carlos Sainz did win the Mexican Grand Prix here last year, so maybe we should have predicted a little bit of a better weekend from Ferrari, but it's just because it feels like such a different Ferrari car this season, doesn't it? That everything from last season just kind of feels like we've forgotten about. We've moved on from that now. It's not the same Ferrari as last year in any way. So that's why I don't really see it in that same vein. but Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton coming to the fore, starting in the podium places. Is this going to be Lewis Hamilton's first podium in a Ferrari? I know he won the sprint race in China, but a lot of people don't count that. Oh, thank you for the super chat. Hope today's race for Piastri is like the Nürburgring 2018, how Hamilton won after struggling the whole weekend and starting 14th. Hope Piastri can have a good night's sleep and is relaxed. I think it's going to be tough. I mean, he's not starting from 14th, to be fair. So a little bit higher up in the standings is Oscar Piastri. He starts in 7th place. We'll get to him momentarily. I do think 7th place is not the end of the world for him. But as I said, we've still got to talk about George Russell starting on the 2nd row of the grid and keeping an eye on Max Verstappen. Verstappen's in a very awkward spot there, I think. Just sandwiched between the two Mercedes cars. Last time he kind of went into a heavy braking zone with Kimi Antonelli beside him. Well, it wasn't even beside him, was it, in Austria? Kimi Antonelli just came out of nowhere and smashed into the side of Max Verstappen. So needs to be a little bit careful, does Max Verstappen, because he's the chaser, not the chasee this time around when it comes to the championship battle. And we know Max Verstappen needs to be basically perfect to keep himself within the championship battle. It's a 5th place start. I think if Max Verstappen can get himself up onto the podium places, Piastri is still a little bit further behind. Even if Lando Norris wins this weekend, it's not championship over for Max Verstappen, because you got to remember he's got to catch Norris and Piastri. So as long as he's gaining on one of the two, I don't think is absolute disaster. But it's certainly going to test him that little bit more, right? He knows he needs to catch both McLarens and needs to outdo both McLarens. But he can take it in terms of which McLaren he beats a little bit, especially as going into Brazil. It's one of Max's best tracks on the calendar. Kimi Antonelli starting in 6th place. Again, very strong from Mercedes, so stronger than I was expecting. I was thinking this is going to be a quite easy fight between the McLarens and the Red Bulls, but actually, both of the Ferraris and both of the Mercedes cars getting involved in it. Oscar Piastri then starting on the 4th row of the grid. And yeah, starting from down in 7th place, certainly not impossible that he can win from there, especially because he can go for it at turn 1 in particular and play the strategy. Although the tyre degradation battle has not been quite as fluctuating as it was in the first half of the season, and McLaren haven't quite had the same advantage in the second half of the season, you never know. Maybe it will be one of those weekends where tyre degradation really does play a factor, and actually in the long runs, we see Oscar Piastri able to maybe undercut a few people or even overcut a few people when that McLaren is in a little bit of clean air and he can find some pace inside of it. Isaac Hadjar starts best of the rest in 8th place because of Carlos Sainz's penalty. So Sainz moves down to 12th place. Isaac Hadjar then taking that spot as best of the rest, as he has been a few times this season. Ollie Behrman and Yuki Tsunoda also start inside of the point scoring positions. Really big weekend for Yuki Tsunoda. We've heard Helmut Marko and Laurent Mekies saying that the decisions about Red Bull's future and what their drivers will look like for next season, the discussions start after Mexico. Whether we'll get to know that decision, probably not. But I think they, inside of Red Bull and the team, will start to think about what's happening next year. I think also the fact that Arvid Lindblad put in a better lap than Yuki Tsunoda in free practice 1, being a rookie, not a huge sort of positive note for Yuki Tsunoda, so he needs a really, really good performance here. Starting in 10th place, Esteban Ocon starts in 11th. Carlos Sainz, as I mentioned before, drops down to 12th place. I think he'll be chasing the point scoring positions. He'll know that Williams car has the pace this weekend, and to be fair, Carlos Sainz is able to get performance out of the car here. He won here last year in a Ferrari where Charles Leclerc literally said he was untouchable. So we know he can go very, very quickly indeed around this circuit. Hulkenberg starts in 13th, Fernando Alonso 14th, Lawson in 15th place. Gabriel Bortoleto starts in 16th. Alex Albon starts in 17th place, sort of really unfortunate for him. Again, just wasn't quite with the car. Starting on the hard compound tire, though, is Alex Albon, so that could be a decisive thing. We've seen him a few times this year start on the hard compound tire, go super, super long into the Grand Prix, and actually come out the better side of it because of the pace that Williams car does have sometimes over the rest of the midfield pack. Pierre Gasly starting in 18th place beside him, Lance Stroll in 19th place, and Franco Colapinto starts back of the pack in 20th spot. As you can see, a little bit of a mix. Soft compound tyres for Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc. They held on to a fresh set of soft compound tyres throughout qualifying yesterday. We were sort of looking at them, especially in Q1, Q2, where they were going out on the used sets of softs and maybe playing a little bit fine in terms of getting through to Q3, and we were wondering if that was going to work out for them. But actually, the inherent pace that Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc had, it worked perfectly for them, and it's why I like the Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, for instance, are having to start on slightly scrubbed sets of soft compound tyres because they didn't back themselves to be able to absolutely guarantee a spot in Q3 without using an extra set of softs. Max Verstappen starts in the medium compound tyre, so zigging where everybody else has zagged, because Antonelli and Piastri also starting on the soft compound tyre. Piastri starting on a scrubbed set compared to his teammate on a fresh set, though. And again, that's the difference. Lando Norris had the pace, was able to use those soft compound tyres to his advantage. Piastri was worried. Piastri didn't know if he was going to get through to Q2, through to Q3, and therefore Piastri had to use an extra set of softs. Hadjar starts on the medium tyre, Behrman on the softs, and Yuki Tsunoda on the medium. And then it's a little bit of a mix once we get into the back of the pack and outside of the points scoring places. Have I had a haircut? No. I need a haircut. If anyone's got any recommendations for good haircuts that I could get, that would be great. I don't really know what I want. I was going to get my haircut a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, don't really know what kind of haircut I want, so opted against it. But it's getting a little bit long now, isn't it? And we've detoured, so let's get ourselves back on track and start to set up for the Grand Prix. DRS disabled is the current race control message. Will be enabled once we get past the first lap. Get a mullet. Not sold. Feel like I'd look Valtteri Bottas-esque. Let's get rid of the championship for now. We'll delve into that a little bit later on. And we have got the Mexican Grand Prix circuit. 71 laps of the Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez. Formation lap is underway. It is indeed. We are going to see a very long run down to turn one for the formation lap. We have got Max Verstappen. Oh, actually, my track map seems to be a little bit behind. Let's just move that along a touch. See if we can get that back aligned with live. There we are. Lando Norris leads the pack off then. Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton just behind. George Russell in fourth spot. Verstappen, Antonelli, Piastri, Hadjar, Behrman, Tsunoda. Our top 10. What do we think then? Long run down to turn one. Who is going to be leading going into that first corner? Of course, Lando Norris does not have the benefit of being able to be Lando Norris is in front of everybody, so doesn't have the benefit of getting behind somebody to slipstream all the way down towards turn one for the cars behind Lando Norris. In particular, Charles Leclerc will be looking to move over and get behind Lando Norris almost as soon as they get underway. Lewis Hamilton also coming around behind as well. I think Hamilton's in such a good position here. He can get a good start, can shuffle in behind his teammate, likely then also shuffle in behind Lando Norris and maybe go for a big lunge up the inside to see Lewis Hamilton take the lead in a Scuderia Ferrari. That would be something a little bit special. George Russell will be thinking about that Spanish Grand Prix overtake. Remember in Spain when George Russell went all the way around the outside of Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. I think that might have even been last season rather than this season. But starting down in 4th place. Again, we'll have that slipstream of the cars in front of him. And knows he is able to pull out a move. Lando Norris coming to a stop inside of his grid box then. And just needs to wait for the other 19 cars to settle themselves into place. Max Verstappen can see the back of Lando Norris's car. But Piastri will also be looking right at the back of Max Verstappen. They're all on that left-hand side of the grid. Norris, Hamilton, Verstappen, Piastri form a line. And just the last few cars coming around turn 16 and 17. Franco Colapinto, the final car to need to take his place. Once Franco Colapinto is in that position, we will be underway here in Mexico. As I say, 71 laps ahead of us. Usually the best turn 1 of the year. Yeah, it's certainly one of the most exciting ones. I don't know, I like turn 1 at Austin. But 5 red lights. Let's watch turn 1 as we go down to it. Lando Norris gets away pretty well. Charles Leclerc moves across, but Lewis Hamilton also tucks in behind his teammate. He knows that he needs that drag down. Lewis Hamilton moves to the side of Charles Leclerc. The 2 Ferraris side by side. Lando Norris moving into the inside of the track. Max Verstappen tries to go around the outside, but gets it completely wrong. And Max is over the grass. Max Verstappen is going to lose at least a couple of positions there. Kimi Antonelli also going super wide as well. And Charles Leclerc has been able to make the move up the inside of Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc takes the lead of this Grand Prix. Lando Norris, though, comes back at him down towards turn 4. And Lando Norris takes the position back. Max Verstappen still tussling with the Ferrari of Lewis Hamilton. He's up the inside of Lewis Hamilton. Can he make it stick? Not quite. Hamilton continues on and is in the podium places still. George Russell has dropped back to 5th place. Ollie Behrman with an incredible start up to 6th place. And there is a little bit of contact. Is it Colapinto and Lance Stroll who have gone wide at turn 6? I think both of those cars, a little bit of damage on the Aston Martin and the Alpine. But Lando Norris escapes away now from Charles Leclerc. Oscar Piastri's had a pretty poor start. He's down to 9th place, our current championship leader. Lance Stroll has spun out. Yeah, both Lance Stroll and Franco Colapinto. I think it was a touch between the two of them, running in 19th and 20th place. They're still in 19th and 20th place. But a little bit of damage to both of those cars. Lando Norris starts the 2nd lap of this Grand Prix, still in the lead. Max Verstappen tucks in behind the Ferrari, knows that the straight line speed of the Red Bull car not quite there this time around. Needs the DRS advantage, I think. But DRS not yet activated. Will be once they get to the next DRS zone. George on the radio. And George Russell on the radio saying that he thinks he should be given that position back. Max Verstappen did completely cut turn 2, rejoined the track at turn 3, went across the grass after braking insanely late on the outside of turn 1. Went onto the grass, did Max Verstappen, rejoined the track at turn 3. And George Russell thinking that Max Verstappen rejoined in a little bit of an unfavourable fashion for him. And George Russell should be given that position back. I'd have to see a replay of it because I was watching Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc tussling side by side. Lando Norris, though, has disappeared into the distance. Now a 2-second lead almost for Lando Norris at the start of this Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton keeping himself within DRS range of Charles Leclerc. That's the only thing that Max Verstappen is going to have to worry about, is the Ferraris can play a little game here as long as they keep themselves within DRS range of one another. Max Verstappen is always going to have a little bit of a tough time as Charles Leclerc puts in the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Verstappen does indeed have the DRS open. Not able to do anything this time around, though. George Russell, Ollie Behrman, Kimi Antonelli and Yuki Tsunoda still behind. Here comes Oscar Piastri, still running in 9th place and frustrating as he looks at the back of the Red Bull car of Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda, of course, will not be doing Oscar Piastri any favours, with Tsunoda trying to get at least a few more points in the book and also helping out his teammate in the fight for the championship. Liam Lawson has come into the pits. I think a little bit of damage possibly done to Liam Lawson's front wing, and yellow flags being waved in the first sector. It's down towards turn 1. Is there some debris down there at turn 1? Are we going to see a safety car of some kind? We are seeing the cars now. Lando Norris coming towards the final sector of the track. Liam Lawson is actually making his way through that yellow flagged zone. Can they get it done before George Russell still on the radio complaining about Max Verstappen taking that position from him, saying it's ridiculous, cutting the grass and gaining a position. I'm sure the stewards are looking at it. No investigations at the moment, but Russell is going to continue to complain. Charles Leclerc now 2 seconds adrift still of Lando Norris, as Norris then rebuttals with a fastest lap of his own. Lewis Hamilton. Oh, Oscar Piastri does have a little look at Yuki Tsunoda. Nothing doing for the Australian this time around. Oscar Piastri, though, knowing he needs to get back up, well, to at least 7th place where he started. Ollie Behrman doing a wonderful job between the two Mercedes cars, keeping himself within DRS range of George Russell ahead. There's actually quite a big DRS train behind Charles Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, Russell, Behrman, Antonelli. Yuki Tsunoda has just dropped outside of DRS range, but would have had it before. Then Piastri also within DRS range behind as well. Ocon, Hadjar, then Carlos Sainz, the next over 1 second gap that we can see. Also, Franco Colapinto continued on. Both Stroll and Colapinto continued on. I thought they had a little bit more damage to their cars, but maybe it was Liam Lawson that actually came out worst of the bunch, as Lawson has pitted very, very early. Or this could be a Racing Bulls strategy. We know that Racing Bulls like to do something a little bit different with their strategy sometimes. They've pitted Liam Lawson very early. He's gone onto the hard compound tyre. Are we going to see Liam Lawson try to go all the way to the end on that hard compound tyre? Especially if he can get the pace going now and possibly a safety car or even a virtual safety car plays into his favour. I think Liam Lawson might be going for something a little bit different here. We'll have to wait and see what his lap times are like, because currently we've only seen him do an outlap on those hard compound tyres. Leclerc's reactions, 0.02 seconds faster. He was indeed. Oh, there you go. Here's the replay of Max Verstappen. So goes over the grass, comes out amongst the Ferrari of Lewis Hamilton. I think George Russell also went a little bit wide, though. Charles Leclerc does come straight over to the left-hand side of the track to tuck in behind Lando Norris. Norris tries to move to the inside. Lewis Hamilton then pinches his teammate. And Lewis Hamilton, oh, I think there's a little bit of a contact there between Hamilton and Leclerc. And then Charles Leclerc has to go wide and gain that position. Leclerc then gives the position back to Lando Norris, I think, actually. Although Charles Leclerc was leading for a moment. Max Verstappen goes super deep into turn 1. And saying he got squeezed like crazy, Max Verstappen on the radio. Hamilton and Leclerc both battling for position. Hamilton saying, oh, and there's Verstappen going wide. Verstappen over the grass has gone past Lewis Hamilton, and Hamilton is now side by side with George Russell. Verstappen's going to have to give the position back to at least Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton's gone too deep into turn 4. It's all happening now. Verstappen, Hamilton, Russell all tussling with one another. Now Ollie Behrman getting involved with the 4-time world champion. I don't know what's happened to Max Verstappen here, but he's having an absolutely torrid time inside of that Red Bull and is getting outdone by Ollie Behrman. Behrman, though, goes a little bit wide and still gains the position. Big snap from Max Verstappen as well. Everybody is all over the place. Ollie Behrman is now up into 4th place. Hamilton managed to contain 3rd place despite going over the grass. George Russell has dropped back behind even Yuki Tsunoda, I think. No, it's Kimi Antonelli, sorry, that has taken the position from George Russell. And it was a huge tussle between Hamilton, Russell and Verstappen through turn 4 that caused utter madness there. And Liam Lawson has come back into the pits, and I think Liam Lawson might be out of this Grand Prix. It was not a tactical decision after all for Liam Lawson. He is out of this one. Behrman still ahead of Max Verstappen. Here comes Oscar Piastri behind Yuki Tsunoda, still not able to do anything inside of his McLaren car. Lando Norris, though, leading by 2 seconds and disappearing. Here goes Max Verstappen into turn 1. There was contact between Verstappen and Hamilton as they went through turn 1. Hamilton then pushes Max Verstappen across turn 3. So Verstappen can't actually get to the apex of turn 3. Gave him the space. Verstappen then pushes Hamilton very wide indeed. Hamilton then gives him a little bit back. It is very 2021 indeed. Oh my goodness. And then we get to turn 4 and Hamilton is the one at fault. Max Verstappen also brakes super late. Pushes George Russell wide. Ollie Behrman is the beneficiary of it, though, as the Haas driver just goes up the inside of turn 5 and says, thank you very much. As long as you two are fighting with one another, I'm going to take 4th spot. Max Verstappen back down to 5th. Ollie Behrman up into 4th spot. It is triple Ferrari from 2nd down to 4th. Max Verstappen still frustrated. George Russell even more so now that he's stuck behind his teammate. The investigations are only now starting to come in, though. Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz under investigation. Everybody else getting away with these tussles at this moment in time. Leaving the track and gaining an advantage is Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso's incident. DRS is indeed active. Yuki Tsunoda and Oscar Piastri getting into a little bit of a tete-a-tete through turn 4 and turn 5, but Piastri not able to do it this time around. Turn 4, Lewis Hamilton failing to follow race director's instructions in the escape road. We could see Lewis Hamilton get a little bit of a telling off because he hasn't gone down the escape road correctly. Verstappen now closing into the back of Ollie Behrman. DRS for Max Verstappen, no DRS for Ollie Behrman. Behrman 2 seconds adrift of the back of Lewis Hamilton now. So Verstappen will have DRS and the slipstream down towards turn 1, but is on the medium tyre compared to Behrman on the soft. I think that's the only thing with Verstappen now. He's on the medium tyre, so everybody else ahead of him on that softer compound. And as we can see, they've just got maybe a little bit more grip than him, especially after he flat spotted those tyres pretty significantly down towards turn 1. DRS is open, but he isn't able to get alongside Behrman just yet. Oscar Piastri also has another little look. And Lewis Hamilton saying, what are we doing about people who took advantage in turn 1? And says nothing yet. We are a little bit further into turn 1. Lewis Hamilton under investigation. Alonso and Sainz as well. Still no chat on whether Max Verstappen gained an advantage at turn 1 there or what's really happening. Hamilton, though, still inside of the podium places for now. Behrman might get his first podium. It's certainly on. He is not quite on the pace of the 2 Ferraris ahead. He was 0.3 of a second slower than Lewis Hamilton last lap. But, I mean, at the moment, all he needs is one of the Ferraris to have a pretty bad pit stop or a difficult afternoon in one way or another. And Ollie Behrman is best of the rest by considerable margin right now. He's got Verstappen, Antonelli, Russell, and Tsunoda, and Piastri behind him. And actually, the second best of the rest midfielder is also a Haas. Esteban Ocon down in 10th place inside of the point-scoring positions. Hadjar has dropped outside of the point-scoring positions. Carlos Sainz hasn't made the pace of that Williams work in the way we were expecting as we head into lap 10 of this Grand Prix. And it's actually Kimi Antonelli having a look at the back of Max Verstappen as Verstappen has dropped outside of DRS range of Ollie Behrman now. So Verstappen actually more under threat from behind than more likely to go forwards, which is music to the ears of Ollie Behrman fans right now. Behrman is outside of the DRS zone of Verstappen, and Verstappen is having to deal with Kimi Antonelli all over the back of his Red Bull car. Lando Norris continues to put in fastest laps of anybody, though. He's now 2.5 seconds ahead of Charles Leclerc. Leclerc disappearing into the distance as well. 5 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton after Hamilton's escapades through the grass. Lewis Hamilton now 3 investigations for him. Let's have a little look at what all of those are for. So Hamilton does indeed turn 4 incident involving Lewis Hamilton failing to follow the race director's instructions for the escape road, and also a turn 1 incident involving Verstappen and Hamilton for causing a collision. They have put that. Ooh, I don't know whether they've put that onto Hamilton or Verstappen. It felt like Verstappen was the one that kind of went in a little bit hotter, but Verstappen also on the inside line and hit the apex of the corner. Here comes Oscar Piastri, though, side by side with Yuki Tsunoda. He's finally going to go for a move as Oscar Piastri, and he's back up into 8th place before they even get down towards turn 1. Oscar Piastri now, George Russell, the next driver ahead of him, back ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, and only 1.6 seconds adrift of Russell. Here we go then, Piastri. Little bit of clean air now for Oscar Piastri. Can he really go for it? Of course, would, at this moment in time, if things stay as they are, lose the championship lead to Lando Norris. And Lando Norris would also have more of an advantage over Max Verstappen than Oscar Piastri currently has. The gap in the championship would move to 41 points. So everything is going in Lando Norris's favor right now. If you are a Lando Norris fan, this is pretty much exactly what you would have wanted from this weekend. Lando Norris dominant. Both of the Ferraris getting involved. Whether it was the Ferraris or the Mercedes doesn't really matter, but one of your sort of top-end rivals taking points off of your teammate and also Max Verstappen. Pretty much perfect for Lando Norris at this moment in time. But we are only 12 laps into 71 here in this Grand Prix. We're yet to see any of the pit stops play out as well. One retirement from Liam Lawson, down in 20th place and now shaded out. His Racing Bulls car not able to go the distance. Currently, 19 drivers continue on. Franco Colapinto, the slowest of them. Gasly, Hulkenberg, Albon ahead of those. The 2 Aston Martins in 15th and 14th place, with Stroll just behind Alonso. Carlos Sainz running in 13th place. Gabriel Bortoleto 12th. And Isaac Hadjar, the first driver outside of the points, in 11th. Esteban Ocon has managed to get both of the Haas cars up into the point scoring places. He's in 10th. Yuki Tsunoda 9th. Oscar Piastri up into 8th place. Started 7th, of course, though, so has dropped a position since the start. George Russell also dropping down to 7th place now. Antonelli up to 6th. Verstappen still in 5th. Ollie Behrman, the huge winner from the first 10 laps of this Grand Prix, is up into 4th spot. Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc still running 3rd and 2nd, with Lando Norris at the top of the table as it stands. Lando Norris starts lap 13 of this Grand Prix, and again elongates that lead. Now 3.5 seconds between Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc, fighting for top spot. I think everybody is just sort of settled in a touch now, realizing that the tires are probably starting to overheat, the brakes are starting to overheat, the engine's starting to overheat. It is the battle that you have with the elements here in Mexico. The air is so thin. That thing where it's such high altitude here in Mexico. The engines have to be run at different settings because they overheat. The brakes also, they overheat so much because even though you can go quicker because there's less drag, there's also less air cooling everything down. There's less oxygen actually running through the engine to help burn the fuel inside of it. So it is a dangerous balance inside of those Formula One cars that they have to play during the Mexican Grand Prix weekend. Ocon says, indeed, a dangerous defense from Yuki Tsunoda. I mean, he had Ollie Behrman saying the same thing about him last week. Yuki Tsunoda not making friends with the Haas drivers in recent weekends, as Esteban Ocon is the only driver really inside of the top 10 who's looking to make a move. I know Kimi Antonelli and George Russell both have DRS as well, but they've sort of settled in just behind Max Verstappen and know that maybe is the time to cool down a little bit of, well, everything inside of their cars. Lando Norris, though, another fastest lap of the race. And this is the benefit now from Lando Norris's perspective. What is a downside of starting P1? Because you have to, well, battle with everybody down towards turn 1 who's got a slipstream. Now that you've got that clean air in front of you, huge huge advantage to Lando Norris. Just that cooler air that he is going to be running into means that he can push the engine a little bit harder, push the brakes a little bit harder, because he's able to cool it down more so than the 19 cars, or now 18 cars, that are following behind him. Charles Leclerc now nearly 5 seconds adrift of Norris, just showing that advantage that Norris has got over the rest of the field. Lewis Hamilton still 5 seconds adrift of his teammate, 4 seconds back to Ollie Behrman. Max Verstappen, really the only driver within touching distance and still not within DRS range. So, unfortunately, the Mexican Grand Prix looking like it might just settle in a touch. And we need a couple of pit stops to maybe shake up the order from this point forwards. Alex Albon's one to keep an eye on. Started on the hard compound tyre. What's his pace been like? 24.0 last lap is matching Carlos Sainz, who also did a 24.0. Look at the guys at the front, a 22.1 from Lando Norris, 22.8 from Charles Leclerc, 22.5 from Hamilton. So the pace of the hard compound tyre on Alex Albon's car, at least not looking to be incredible right now, but he is also behind the 2 Aston Martin cars. Fernando Alonso now looking at his fellow Spaniard, the rear wing of Fernando Alonso's car wide open. Is he going to go for a move on Carlos Sainz? Not this time around. Think slightly about it. Possibly down towards turn 4, though. Fernando Alonso looking very close indeed to the back of Carlos Sainz's car. Within half a second is where you need to be to make a move. And just can't do it this time around. Carlos Sainz is safe for another lap, it seems. Battling for 13th place. What happens if you sub? You become a wonderful member of this community, and you get us one step closer to 150,000 subscribers, which is what we're aiming for the end of the season. Whilst we're in a little bit of a lull, maybe hit that subscribe button, hit the like button on the stream as well. It really does help out the stream. Like, hitting the like button more than anything else helps out these streams. So if you could do that, that would be absolutely incredible. 10-second penalty for Lewis Hamilton is indeed confirmed. Go to the investigations tracker. 10-second penalty for Lewis Hamilton. Leaving the track and gaining an advantage was what was deemed to give Lewis Hamilton a 10-second penalty. At this moment in time, that would drop Lewis Hamilton to... Where is he? He's 10 seconds adrift of Lando Norris. So who's 20 seconds adrift? That would drop him down to Oscar Piastri territory and down to 7th place, possibly even 8th place, depending on how quickly Oscar Piastri can move over this next lap. Obviously, still a long way to go. 10-second penalty for Lewis Hamilton will drop him down the order considerably at this point. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Verstappen hasn't got a penalty. No, not at this point. No Verstappen penalty. But a 10-second penalty for Lewis Hamilton. I think it's because Max Verstappen, when he did leave the track, he came back on the escape road correctly. What Lewis Hamilton has been deemed to have done is left the track at turn 4 and not used the escape road correctly. He didn't go down the escape road. He went a lot further along and went over the grass instead of going down the escape road. So he kind of skipped the escape road almost and opted to go over the grass instead of using the escape road that is there. So that is why Lewis Hamilton has picked up a penalty. Whereas Max Verstappen, if you do watch his onboard when he goes across turn 1, he does rejoin the track via the escape road that is on the left-hand side at turn 3. It's contentious. It's a very contentious decision from the stewards there. I'm not sure I agree with it, but that's the way that I can see how they have managed to give that penalty to Lewis Hamilton, where they have not given a penalty to Max Verstappen or even George Russell, who has also gone off the track a couple of times, although I think George Russell was pushed wide at turn 5, so slightly different because he didn't cut a corner, instead made the corner a little bit longer for himself. Oscar Piastri gaining on George Russell, now within a second of George Russell, and has the DRS to him. So Tsunoda's been left in the dust. Tsunoda now 6 seconds adrift of Oscar Piastri, the current championship leader. And Piastri smelling blood. He knows that 8th place for him today would mean Lando Norris takes the lead of the championship by a considerable margin as well. Oscar Piastri knowing he needs to move up sooner rather than later. Just ban the FIA from the sport at this point. It's not the FIA, it's the stewards. They're chosen. I suppose they're chosen by the FIA for the weekend, but even so. Max is struggling, losing time to Behrman. Yeah, he's kind of sitting in that 2-second gap though, isn't he? And I think that might be just Max Verstappen cooling everything down a touch as Carlos Sainz decides to be the first driver to come into the pits. So Carlos Sainz started on the medium tyre, did Carlos Sainz, and comes in lap 17 of this Grand Prix. Drops to the back of the pack. Let's keep an eye on Carlos Sainz's pace, though. I didn't see what tyres he was on, which was a stupid thing for me. Went on to the hard compound tyre, did Carlos Sainz. Live championship, please. It's a little bit off because obviously Lewis Hamilton has not yet served his 10-second penalty, but we can have a look at it. Lando Norris would jump up into first place in the championship. He would have a 7-point advantage over Piastri, which exactly splits first and second spot, right? So it is a massive, massive advantage for Lando Norris to have. Verstappen would then also be 41 points adrift of the championship leader. So for the first time since the Netherlands, Max Verstappen would actually lose ground to the championship leader. George Russell gained 6 points. Leclerc, Hamilton stay where they are. Antonelli as well. Ollie Behrman, the huge beneficiary. 12 points for Ollie Behrman at this point would mean he moves up into 32 and jumps up into 13th place in the standings. So Ollie Behrman, the huge victor from this one, if it plays into his favour. Oops, wrong one. Oh, and George Russell went very deep indeed there. As we watch Carlos Sainz. Oh, he's on the soft compound tyre as Carlos Sainz. Don't know why it came up as the hard. Oh, and he goes way too deep, does Carlos Sainz. That is not going to help him at all. Man who won here last year goes way too deep into turn 1. And those soft compound tyres suddenly looking more like 50 pence pieces. Oscar Piastri, though, still gaining on George Russell, now within half a second of George Russell as well. Thank you for the super chat. Massively appreciate that. If you are watching on Twitch, you can subscribe. Twitch Prime. Anybody got Twitch Prime that they just want to, throw my way? That'd be absolutely amazing. If you're watching on YouTube as well, hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. Is the best thing that you can do to support the stream is to hit the like button. Whereas Max is currently running in 5th place. Max Verstappen. Oh my goodness me. And Oscar Piastri starting to go hell for leather now. DRS open behind George Russell. Has a real look at George Russell down towards turn 1. Russell, though, escapes away from him outside of turn 3. So I don't think Piastri is going to be able to have a look down towards turn 4. Doesn't this time around. Lance Stroll also closing into the back of his teammate. And Lance Stroll actually making the move on Fernando Alonso. So Stroll now ahead of Fernando. Up into 13th place. Bortoletto next up, though, is 4.5 seconds ahead of the Canadian. Isaac Hadjar also following closely behind Esteban Ocon, who is in that final point scoring place. Ollie Behrman, though, absolutely holding his own. You look at the pace of Tsunoda and Ocon. Tsunoda has dropped off a cliff. He's now 7 seconds behind Oscar Piastri, as Piastri is still rattling on, trying to get his McLaren past that Mercedes car. But you look at where Ocon is compared to Behrman, and Behrman is looking absolutely electric, keeping Max Verstappen at bay. Here comes Oscar Piastri then, within half a second of George Russell, down towards turn 1. It's a very long run down. George Russell doesn't have the DRS from his teammate ahead. Piastri not able to do it this time around, though, but once again closes the gap to within 0.3 of a second. Fernando Alonso has pitted, so Fernando Alonso clearly not happy with his tyres on that Aston Martin car. Piastri once again has a little look at George Russell into turn 4. but nothing doing this time around. Piastri stays 8th fastest. Lando Norris has now elongated his lead, by the way, to 9.5 seconds over Charles Leclerc. This might be the most dominant performance that we are going to see from Lando Norris all season long. I know he was quick in Austria, but he had that battle with his teammate to contend with. This is utter dominance from Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc trying his best in the Ferrari, but he's going to drop to about 10 seconds behind Lando Norris after just 22 or 23 laps of racing. Lewis Hamilton then another 7 seconds adrift. Hamilton with that 10-second penalty, looking at where that would leave Lewis Hamilton still in and around where Oscar Piastri is. So Hamilton going from the podium places down to 8th place with that additional 10 seconds as it stands. And Lewis Hamilton not very happy at all. Yeah. He thinks he didn't have the grip to be able to slow down enough to use that momentum properly. Oh, thank you so much. A couple of channel members joining us and a super chat as well. And a follow over on Twitch. We are trying to get 700 followers on Twitch. So, if you could follow on Twitch, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. It all massively helps the channel. And Lewis Hamilton absolutely livid on the radio about that penalty. The Ferrari mechanics trying to explain what has happened to Lewis Hamilton, and Hamilton still having none of it. I think he's going to be heading to the stewards and having a little word. Piastri still right underneath the rear wing of George Russell. Just hasn't got that final 10th of pace that he needs to get past George Russell's Mercedes car. But Piastri at least knows at this point that he's within touching distance of Verstappen and Behrman and Antonelli and Russell ahead. So Hamilton, with that penalty, it could be Oscar Piastri shuffles in to the podium places if he can get ahead of those cars. And Kimi Antonelli now plays into his hands a touch as Antonelli pits. Antonelli maybe spotting a little bit of a gap for the Italian to come out into. I don't know, He's going to sort of come out around about Stroll and Albon, is he not? There goes Lance Stroll. There goes Alex Albon. No, Antonelli comes out in between Stroll and Albon. It's not the most tremendous gap I have ever seen to come out into. I thought Antonelli and Mercedes had maybe spotted a better gap, but maybe Antonelli just struggling on those tyres. And maybe Kimi Antonelli playing the guinea pig role, possibly, for George Russell as well. They're like, right, you go onto these tyres first. We'll see how they work. And then we'll see if George Russell can go onto those tyres as well. And Lewis Hamilton, box for Ferrari. Ferrari deciding that they've also seen enough from this first stint on softs. Hamilton will have to serve that 10-second penalty then. So Hamilton does indeed come into the pits. Let's see how this penalty gets served from Ferrari and where Lewis Hamilton comes out. I think this is going to really put Lewis Hamilton in a very awkward spot. 10 seconds they have to wait. And it will feel like 1,000 years for Lewis Hamilton. As you can see, another shake of the head from the Briton. And Hamilton stopped for 13.5 seconds. And he has indeed served that 10-second penalty. But at least Hamilton has that cleared. And rejoins the race down in 14th place, behind Alex Albon and ahead of Nico Hülkenberg, but a considerable chunk behind Kimi Antonelli as well. And GP saying to Max, we are staying out. You're on a 1-stop or a 2-stop at the moment, right? And Max Verstappen saying he can't hear anything over the radio. So Max Verstappen maybe struggling to communicate with GP at a vital point in the Grand Prix where they're trying to decide what needs to happen here. Do they want to go for a 1-stop or a 2-stop? Looking like Antonelli and Hamilton have gone for the 2-stop strategy. Oscar Piastri is being called into the pits as well. I think Piastri has been stuck behind George Russell for long enough, has actually dropped off the back of George Russell a little bit over the last couple of laps. And here comes Oscar Piastri, then Behrman also into the pits as well. So this is where we get to see those drivers that are opting for the one stop versus the two stop and what kind of tires they go on to. Piastri with a slow stop. It's a 3.6 second stop from Piastri. Ollie Behrman gets out still ahead of Piastri. Clearly, Piastri drops down actually behind Kimi Antonelli still. So Piastri hasn't been able to gain track position there, and he's a considerable margin behind Kimi Antonelli. Antonelli now overtaking Lance Stroll. Albon still between them, but there you go. Hamilton has come out behind Oscar Piastri. So Hamilton effectively running down in 8th place. That's where Piastri was before he pitted. And Lewis Hamilton is now behind him. This is the thing for Oscar Piastri, though. He's now got to contend with Lewis Hamilton gaining behind him while he's trying to get these tyres up to temperature. Piastri went onto the mediums, Hamilton onto the mediums as well. Alex Albon, we know, is going incredibly long ahead of these two. He's on the hard compound tyre. So it's going to be awkward for Oscar Piastri. He's going to have to get past Alex Albon quite swiftly. George Russell deciding to come back into the pits and maybe balance off what Piastri has done. Doesn't want to give Piastri the opportunity to gain on him. And actually, it's played out pretty well for George Russell here because Piastri is going to be slowed down by Alex Albon, particularly through this middle part of the lap and then through the final sector. So Albon still in the way of Piastri now. George Russell coming towards the exit of the pits. There's Lance Stroll. Here comes Oscar Piastri past Alex Albon, but still behind George Russell. So Piastri still stuck behind the Mercedes car for now. George Russell 11th on the road. Oscar Piastri up into 12th as he moves past Alex Albon. Both of them are going to have to deal with Lance Stroll ahead, although Lance Stroll has done 25 laps on those soft compound tyres. Lando Norris continues on, though. Norris and Leclerc yet to pit. Verstappen and Tsunoda also up there with Ocon and Hadjar. Behrman has pitted, come out ahead of Antonelli still, and Behrman now catching up to the back of Isaac Hadjar's car. Alex still needs to pit. He does indeed. There's a lot of drivers that still need to pit. The entire top 6 need to pit. Behrman and Antonelli, the front runners of the drivers that have pitted so far. Bortoletto and Stroll have yet to have pitted in 9th and 10th place also. So we know that Russell and Piastri and Hamilton will move up ahead of them. Carlos Sainz has pitted in 15th place. Pierre Gasly yet to pit in 16th. Alonso's pitted in 17th. Franco Colapinto yet to stop. And Nico Hülkenberg just coming into the pits now. And Lance Stroll does indeed come in to release George Russell back up into the point scoring places. Here comes Lewis Hamilton on Alex Albon. Albon not putting up too much of a battle. Knows that he's not really racing the Ferraris this time around. It's not the Miami Grand Prix. And Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari looking a lot quicker this weekend than the Williams cars that he has moved past. So Albon in 13th still. The next car behind Alex Albon is his teammate Carlos Sainz. Those two drivers on very different... Oh, and Carlos Sainz has picked up a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Nico Hülkenberg actually has come into the pits and retired the car. Carlos Sainz, 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane during his pit stop, though. So that's going to be pretty much done and dusted for Carlos Sainz. I can't see the Williams car being able to recover that much, particularly looking at the pace of the likes of the Haas cars and the RB cars this weekend compared to the Williams. I think a 5-second penalty is going to be enough to cost him that any chance of scoring any kind of points this weekend in the Grand Prix that he won last year. Ollie Behrman has caught up to the back of Isaac Hadjar. Esteban Ocon has come into the pits. So Ollie Behrman now fighting with the other rookie, Isaac Hadjar. Hadjar on a completely different strategy, though. Doesn't put up too much of a battle, really. And Ollie Behrman back up into 5th place. George Russell has just put in the fastest lap of the Grand Prix as George Russell moves past Gabriel Bortoletto. Kimi Antonelli now the next driver to try and get past Isaac Hadjar. We're starting to get into that position in the Grand Prix where everybody's on slightly different strategies. It's difficult to see who is going to be where, really, as Kimi Antonelli does manage to get back past Isaac Hadjar and up into 6th place. Yuki Tsunoda still hasn't pitted, but is 12 seconds adrift of Max Verstappen, who is also 12 seconds adrift of Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc now 15 seconds off the lead of this Grand Prix. Lando Norris almost with a pit stop in hand. Lando Norris could pit. He would still come out in 2nd place behind Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc, the only driver within a pit stop distance of Lando Norris. Like, this is utter domination from Lando Norris here. This is a championship drive from Lando Norris and really showing what he has got in the bank compared to the rest of the drivers around him. Here comes Oscar Piastri making a move on Gabriel Bortoleto. Bortoleto yet to have pitted. Of course, Bortoleto a Formula 2 champion. Oscar Piastri the same. But Piastri trying his best to become a Formula 1 champion as well. Moves past Gabriel Bortoleto and up into 9th place. Tsunoda almost on the podium. Hasn't pitted yet. So if you look at his gap to the leader, he's 40 seconds behind Lando Norris. Add 20 odd seconds to that. So he would come out if Yuki Tsunoda pitted now. He would actually come out behind Alex Albon. That's where Yuki Tsunoda is currently running. Although Alex Albon hasn't pitted. So behind Carlos Sainz. If you add the 20 seconds. Did Lewis have to stop and go penalty? He did indeed. 10 seconds he stopped in the pit box for. And that was Carlos Sainz speeding in the pit lane, a 5-second penalty for it. And, it was actually a problem that Carlos Sainz had. Something's broken, possibly a vibration. So the pit limiter wasn't working effectively. Looks like an electronic issue for Carlos Sainz as he was trying to engage the pit limiter. It then started just to make the car jump up and down. And unfortunately, 5-second penalty. If you're over the speed limit, you're over the speed limit. Here comes Oscar Piastri. He deals with Isaac Hadjar. And Isaac Hadjar moves back down to 9th place. Piastri up into 8th. And Piastri finally back behind the 2 Mercedes cars as he was before the pit stops. Behrman podium is certainly up for grabs right now. Lewis Hamilton with that 10-second penalty has put Ollie Behrman in the position to go for it. He's 2 seconds adrift of Yuki Tsunoda right now. Problem with Ollie Behrman right now is he's got Tsunoda ahead of him and Kimi Antonelli actually closing in behind as well. So Behrman, it's going to be a tough one for him, but I'm certainly not saying never. We've seen Hadjar on the podium, Hülkenberg on the podium, Carlos Sainz on the podium this year. Why not a Haas? Haas's first podium in Formula 1 as well. That would be utter chaos if he was able to get that. We saw how much they celebrated a pole position in Brazil a few years ago with Kevin Magnussen. Imagine them on the Mexican podium. Getting ahead of myself. I'm getting ahead of myself. There's still 41 laps yet to play out in Mexico. But you can see from the beaming smile on my face that I would absolutely love Ollie Behrman to get himself onto the podium. That would be a wonderful, wonderful moment. If Haas get a podium, every team would have a podium in the ground effect era. Is that true? That is incredible. It would be delightful if Ollie Behrman gets on the podium. I agree with Honeybee. Lewis Hamilton, though, is starting to close back into Oscar Piastri once again. He's finally dealt with Bortoleto and Hadjar also. We're starting to see the drivers getting back into the positions where they're really running at this point. Yuki Tsunoda and Max Verstappen clearly on the one-stop strategy. Yet to have stopped. Norris and Leclerc also running very, very long indeed on those soft compound tyres. I can understand it from Lando Norris's perspective. He is 28 seconds ahead of 3rd place at this point. Like, this could be Lando Norris lapping the entire field with the kind of pace that he is showing today. He is absolutely rapid. Maybe not lapping the entire field, but you know what I mean. He's very, very fast. I was being exaggerative. Charles Leclerc comes in. Leclerc into the pits. Charles Leclerc swaps. He's going to still come out ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. He does indeed. Charles Leclerc also, has to be said, as much as the pace of Lando Norris makes it look like Charles Leclerc is standing still, he's certainly not. He's absolutely flying. And here comes Ollie Behrman then to overtake Yuki Tsunoda. And Ollie Behrman is now only 2 seconds adrift of Charles Leclerc. I know that Leclerc is on the fresher tyres. I know that Charles Leclerc has only just pitted, where Behrman pitted 7 laps ago. But he's absolutely flying this weekend as Ollie Behrman. Stunning stuff from him. And Behrman getting that move done on Yuki Tsunoda to now be running behind what feels like his possible future teammate, Charles Leclerc, right? And Ollie Behrman's dad celebrates like he's on for the win. Absolutely losing it inside of the Haas garage, as you would be. Well deserved from Ollie Behrman. And we just have to pray. He's almost at the halfway point here. He gained massively. He watched Hamilton and Russell and Verstappen tussle in front of him. And he just thought, actually, Lewis Hamilton's gone wide there at turn 4. Max Verstappen's also fighting with George Russell. Let me just slip up the inside of turn 5. And he's put himself ahead of that bundle. And now, into the clean air, is absolutely rattling along Ollie Behrman. Max Verstappen in second place. Lando Norris 28 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen at this point in the Grand Prix. And it just feels like Lando Norris destined to win this Grand Prix at this point. There is no way anybody is getting anywhere close to that, is there? At this point, there is George Russell making a move on Yuki Tsunoda. So now Antonelli and Russell have passed the Red Bull car. Oscar Piastri next to move past him. All I want is for Verstappen to undercut. A little bit too late now. And also, you're not getting a 28-second undercut. Unless Lando Norris is going for the 2-stop. But I doubt it. You so jinxed it now, mate? Yeah, I feel like Lando Norris DNF incoming, right? He's going to get up to Franco Colapinto. And Colapinto's going to like wipe him out or something. Here comes Oscar Piastri on Yuki Tsunoda. Not able to get it this time around. Certainly down towards turn 1. Feels like the McLaren car will move back behind George Russell once again. But every single lap, he's losing time to Russell and Antonelli ahead. Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc still our top 3. But Verstappen not really running there. Verstappen, where is he? 28 seconds off the leader, so add 20 seconds to that. Verstappen would actually come out behind Oscar Piastri at this point. Obviously, playing a completely different strategy, though, Verstappen, going much, much longer on this first stint. But would be behind Piastri if he were to pit right now. Wonder how long Verstappen will go. And here comes Lando Norris. Lando Norris pretty much exactly halfway through this Grand Prix. 34 laps completed on those tyres. Decides to come into the pits, swap them around, and it's a medium compound tyre for Lando Norris. He's going to come out still in the lead of this Grand Prix by a considerable margin. And as I say, unless something goes really wrong for Lando Norris, it's looking pretty signed, sealed, and delivered for the McLaren man. Behind Hamilton? Yeah, sorry, he would come out behind Lewis Hamilton as well. Verstappen if he pitted now. Oh, no, maybe not. Yeah, he would. Just behind Lewis Hamilton as well. George Russell on the radio. I've got more pace here, says George Russell. Wanting to... Okay, well, free to overtake. Wow, that is a statement of intent, isn't it, from the Mercedes team? If you want to overtake your teammate, you're going to have to do it out on track. Not moving him aside. Lewis Hamilton moves up behind Yuki Tsunoda and gets past the Japanese driver to get back up into 8th place. Hamilton has dropped from 3rd to 8th because of that 10-second penalty. Wow, wow, wow. Yuki Tsunoda now really struggling on a very different strategy to the rest of the field. Like he's on the same strategy that, well, Gabriel Bortoleto is. And Gabriel Bortoleto 7 seconds adrift. Alex Albon behind even further as well. But it is looking very, very dismal for Yuki Tsunoda at this point. Oh, and Fernando Alonso looks like he is retiring from this Grand Prix. Aston Martin have seen enough. Fernando Alonso, halfway through this race, calls it quits and jumps out of his Aston Martin car. So that is our third retirement. Nico Hülkenberg and Liam Lawson also retiring from this Grand Prix. I do think sometimes, and say it quietly, I think this is a good Grand Prix to retire from, because the stress that it puts on your engine, your gearbox, your brakes, that are things that, you know, you've only got limited numbers of throughout the season. If you're not running well and points are looking really, really unlikely, not a terrible idea to retire from this Grand Prix. I know that you got to be in it to win it, and I know that there could be a massive crash and 8 cars could all be wiped out, and there could be a safety car that plays into Alonso's favor, things like that, but I think it's not the worst idea to sometimes call this one quits in Mexico. George Russell still on the radio, thinks he's got better pace than his teammate, wants to be given that position, but Mercedes saying to him, look, if you're quicker than Kimi Antonelli, you should be able to get past him. And I think almost a little bit of a test for George Russell here. We know that they have given him the contract he wanted for 2026. George Russell has talked a lot about being in championship contention going into next season, and that he would want to be at Mercedes more than any other team. Can he back it up? Can he get past his teammate now? Can he really show that he deserves to be the team number 1? I have to wait and see. Norris still running in first place. Max Verstappen 10 seconds adrift in second. And then Leclerc third. Behrman still running fourth, 2.5 seconds adrift. And once Max Verstappen pits, Ollie Behrman is going to be up into the podium places, by the way. Of course, likely that Ollie Behrman will have to pit again. Depends how long he can go on those medium tyres. But we're seeing Max Verstappen go 36 laps on medium. Seeing Yuki Tsunoda do the same pitting now. There's nothing to say that as, you know, the cars get lighter, you can go a little bit longer on the tyres towards the end of the Grand Prix. They're burning the fuel, which just makes the cars a little bit easier to handle. Alex Albon and Esteban Ocon fighting for position. And Esteban Ocon gets himself up ahead through to turn 1. Very nice move from Esteban Ocon, actually, on the outside of turn 1 through turn 2, and then manages to just about keep himself ahead through turn 3 down towards turn 4. Alex Albon had a little look, but Ocon closes the door on him. Not enough likes on this stream. You know how we can change that. Everybody hit the like button right now. If you're watching the stream on Twitch, on YouTube, if you're watching on Twitch, hit the follow. Oh. And George Russell saying, I've got a McLaren up my ass. Are you going to let me past? And the Mercedes team just saying, no, George, I'm really sorry, mate. You're going to have to get past all by yourself. Max Verstappen has finally pitted. Verstappen is indeed going to come out behind Lewis Hamilton, as we said before. Verstappen has got a nice bit of clean air to run into. That's the only positive here, is we know that a few other teams are probably going for a 2-stop strategy. Max Verstappen's got a nice bit of clean air that he can use to really show the pace of this Red Bull car. And the undercut might be on for Max Verstappen versus anybody who goes for a 2-stopper. And George Russell on the radio still just wanting to get past his teammate, saying he's happy to give the position back to Kimi Antonelli if he can't get past Ollie Behrman. But, I mean, what if Oscar Piastri then also takes over Kimi Antonelli? George Russell being very whiny on the radio indeed, Josh. I agree. He's trying every trick in the book, I think, here to get the team to make a decision. But I don't think they're going to. And Oscar Piastri is getting closer and closer. The advantage of that McLaren car, as Lando Norris puts in the fastest lap of the Grand Prix once again. A 120.8 from Lando Norris. This is just insane domination from Lando Norris. He is not only in a league of his own, he's in a stratosphere of his own this weekend as Lando Norris. A stunning drive from the Briton. We're only halfway through this Grand Prix. He's already nearly got another pit stop advantage to Charles Leclerc behind. Absolutely ridiculous from Lando Norris. A second faster? That's what I mean. He's flying out there. Charles Leclerc, second fastest at the moment, but 17.5 seconds adrift of Norris in first place. Ollie Behrman's just starting to lose the pace of the top two a little bit. He's just dropped to like 4 seconds behind Charles Leclerc at this point in the Grand Prix. Then we've got Kimi Antonelli. He's a second or so adrift of Ollie Behrman outside of DRS range. George Russell within DRS range of his teammate, but Oscar Piastri now causing him problems behind. Lewis Hamilton trying to gain back the positions that he lost due to his penalty. He's running in 7th place, but is 4 seconds adrift of Oscar Piastri. And then Max Verstappen currently running 8th. Carlos Sainz, the next car behind. Sainz up to 9th place. It's been a very, very quick drive from Carlos Sainz. That 5-second penalty, though, I think is going to cost him dear. Well, actually, that 5-second penalty is not going to cost him as much as I thought it was going to cost him, to be honest. But Carlos Sainz will definitely need to pit again. Pitted very, very early indeed. And Esteban Ocon still running inside of the point scoring places for Haas. Lance Stroll has had maybe an underrated Grand Prix in the Aston Martin as well. Running in 11th place and right in the mix for the final point scoring places once the final pit stops come into fruition. Lando Norris, though, the onboard, looking comfortable inside of that McLaren car. Just going to go past the start-finish line and into lap 41 of this Grand Prix. 31 laps yet to complete. George Russell on the radio. The rear surface temperatures are too high, and George Russell not very happy to be told off by his race engineer for the just listening to, I'm sorry, I can't even talk, whilst George Russell is absolutely giving it to his race engineer, trying to explain what he was saying, but it was just utter ridiculousness. George Russell under pressure from Oscar Piastri. George Russell's being told basically to try and cool down his rear tires. And now comes the call from Mercedes to swap positions. Wow, that is a late call from Mercedes to swap around the two cars. George Russell is not going to be a happy man. He is not going to be a happy man indeed. He's now chasing Ollie Behrman for 3rd place, but he was absolutely giving it over the radio. Antonelli now slotting in behind his teammate, and Piastri with a different Mercedes car to now look at the rear wing of. Wow. Let's see then. George Russell, can he walk the walk? He's been talking the talk for like 10 laps here. I mean, he'll just blame the fact that he wasn't given the position earlier when he had the pace, but George Russell now has a 2-second gap to Ollie Behrman. How quickly can he really close that gap? Kimi Antonelli has able to maintain 5th place. Oscar Piastri was trying to be advantageous as the two Mercedes cars were swapping around, but wasn't able to do it this time around. Damage limitation race for Oscar. Does feel like that, but he's still got an opportunity here. He's only half a second adrift of Antonelli, and he was putting George Russell under a lot of pressure. He can force a little error from either of the Mercedes cars or possibly just keep them under wraps. Never know. He could just wear out the tyres of the cars ahead of him. George Russell needs to disappear into the distance now, doesn't he? Otherwise, he's going to look very silly indeed. Alex Albon has come into the pits. Albon, 41 laps completed on those hard compound tyres. Has dropped down the order considerably, but it's going to be on a nice fresh set of tyres for the first time. Colapinto continuing on. Colapinto ahead. Lando Norris saying he still prefers the soft compound tyre to the medium tyre. I think trying to help out Oscar Piastri a little bit when Oscar comes in for his second stop. They'll maybe look to go for a soft compound tyre. George thinks he's Hamilton. I think it's more, he was going quicker, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he was going substantially quicker. And the team basically said to him, look, if you're really going that much quicker than your teammate, just do it, right? Get past him. But I think now they've swapped so that they can cool George Russell's car down. I think they might swap back if Piastri can't get past Antonelli. Because I don't think George Russell's going to get past Ollie Behrman anytime soon. That gap has maintained itself at 2 seconds. Hasn't changed in any way. So I can't see it being a huge swap around and George Russell suddenly like launching himself into third place or anything like that. And see Ollie Behrman having a very lovely time, basically, in this Grand Prix. Everything's coming up Millhouse if you're an Ollie Behrman fan. Oops. I've lost audio on my stream. Give me 1 second. There we go. Opinion on permanent stewards. I think it would be a good idea. I just think it's really difficult to do because the traveling is so much, right? And Formula One don't seem to want to pay for permanent stewards. I think is a thing that the sport needs, or at least some permanent stewards, if not all permanent stewards. But there's very much some on and off, isn't there? DRS mixed with dirty air and the weird circumstance of the track. Yeah, there's a lot at play here, isn't there? It's not an easy track to overtake on, despite the fact there's a really long straight towards turn 1. Because turn 13 and turn 14 are so slow, it actually gives the car in front a big advantage going through the final sector. And then by that point, you've got just enough to actually be ahead still down towards turn 1. You need quite a big advantage going down towards turn 1 to actually overtake the car ahead. So as it stands, shall we look at the current standings? Because I'm just looking now, and we have had pit stops from all of the top 10. I know that we're probably going to see some 2-stop strategies throughout this Grand Prix, but let's look at the championship standings as it would be right now if the race finished on lap 45 of the Grand Prix. Even with Piastri now looking at Kimi Antonelli, is he going to be able to make a move? No, not this time around. Okay, Lando Norris would move to the top of the championship for the first time since the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix weekend. Oscar Piastri would not be leading the Formula One Championship going into the final 4 races of the season. Piastri would be down 354 points. He would be 3 points adrift of Lando Norris as it stands. Max Verstappen would be 47 points behind Lando Norris. So remember, he is currently 40 points behind the championship leader. He would drop to 47 points behind Lando Norris. So he would actually lose ground on the championship leader despite outperforming Oscar Piastri as it stands. Or, well, no, not as it stands, because Verstappen probably, well, I think Verstappen's going to get that move done, right, because he's on the one-stop strategy. Probably end up finishing above Piastri. George Russell would gain 12 points. He'd be in 4th still. Leclerc stays where he is. Hamilton stays where he is. Antonelli stays where he is. The big moves, Carlos Sainz would move up into 10th place, just 1 point behind Nico Hülkenberg once again. So nearly we have the Williams side by side in the championship, which I don't think most people would have said going into the second half of the season. The struggles that Carlos Sainz had earlier on in the year, but that podium place that he managed to get in Azerbaijan really playing into Carlos Sainz's favour. Isaac Hadjar would be the driver to lose a position because of that. He'd go down to 11th. Ollie Behrman, though, the huge mover, would move up into 13th place. 15 points Ollie Behrman would gain, would slot him between the 2 Aston Martin cars on 35 points. He'd leave Gabriel Bortoleto for dead, who he's been sort of toing and froing with over the course of the season so far. It would be Stroll, Lawson, Ocon, Tsunoda, and Gasly who would all move down a position to make way for the dominance of Ollie Behrman. Looking at Oscar Piastri, just going through, making a move on Kimi Antonelli. Antonelli now outside of DRS range is why I was looking at Oscar and got slightly confused there. Oscar Piastri now in 6th place, DRS range of Kimi Antonelli ahead. And as I say, Antonelli has dropped outside of DRS range of his teammate. Piastri on the radio. Box to overtake Antonelli. So our Piastri and the McLaren team going to come in now. Let's keep an eye on them. They're just coming through turn 14. Round turn 15 he comes. Here comes Oscar Piastri. And does not, I don't think. He's carried on. Carried on down the main straight. So Oscar Piastri continues on. Is he going to have a go at Kimi Antonelli this time around? Antonelli moves to the inside of the track to cover off Oscar Piastri. He knows it's happening, and Max Verstappen now making a move on Lewis Hamilton, and Verstappen gets the move done. Verstappen up into 7th place. See if Piastri has a go into turn 4, side by side with Kimi Antonelli. Is he able to make a move? Not this time around. And Max Verstappen has got the move done on Lewis Hamilton, though. So Verstappen up into 7th place. And now 2.5 seconds adrift of Oscar Piastri in the McLaren car. Lewis bro fight back. He just hasn't got the pace. Max Verstappen, soft compound tyres, much fresher tyres as well. And Lewis Hamilton, it does feel like the wheels have come off a little bit. That 10-second time penalty has completely thrown his afternoon. Oscar Piastri still being asked if he wants to come into the pit to overtake. Is he coming in this time around? Oh, and Antonelli comes in. Wow, so Antonelli has pitted at the same time as Oscar Piastri. So Piastri, is it going to be a quick stop from McLaren and a slow stop from Mercedes would play into their favour massively? Piastri in and out. Hamilton also stops as well. Let's see where they are. Think Kimi Antonelli? No. It's been a slow stop from Kimi Antonelli. A 4.6 second stop from Kimi Antonelli drops him behind Oscar Piastri. Esteban Ocon coming past, so Piastri gets that advantage, the quicker stop of the two. And Piastri does indeed move past Kimi Antonelli. Is the soft compound tyre as well. Really quick pit stop from the McLaren team and a slow stop from Antonelli means that Antonelli drops to between Piastri and Hamilton. Hamilton also stopped on the exact same lap. So we'll see how those three go. They're all in exactly the same compound tyre as well. A slightly scrubbed set from qualifying soft compound. Let's see what Oscar Piastri can do then on the soft compound tyres. Esteban Ocon, the next driver up the road in 6th spot. Only 2 seconds ahead. So come on, Oscar. Let's see it now. Max Verstappen is making moves as well. He's up to 5th place. George Russell. Is George Russell going to pit? Surely he's going to pit at some point. Ollie Behrman might have to pit as well here. Depends how long he's willing to go. And Behrman does pit, and so does Russell. Here's the two I thought were going to pit next. So Max Verstappen does gain that position back into 3rd. And Behrman and Russell both pit now. So Esteban Ocon is going to be there. Where's Ollie Behrman? Behrman comes out of the pits. So does George Russell. It's going to be right in front of Ocon. It's going to be very close indeed. Is Ocon going to go for the move? Ocon is going to go for the move. No, decides against it. George Russell. Ooh, that was very tight indeed for the Mercedes team to get out ahead of Esteban Ocon. But they have just. So Piastri now behind Esteban Ocon. George Russell ahead of Esteban Ocon. And Ocon in a little bit of a sandwich he doesn't really want to be into as Esteban Ocon looks up the inside of Esteban Ocon. Oscar Piastri wanting to get past the Haas car sooner rather than later. Oh, and I think there's a touch. I think there's a touch between Ocon and Piastri. Piastri still trying to make the move as they go around turn 6. And Piastri does manage to get past. Esteban Ocon did everything he could to slow Oscar Piastri down. He cost him a second or so. And is now 2.5 seconds adrift. Piastri from George Russell. And here comes Kimi Antonelli up the inside of Esteban Ocon as well. And Antonelli taking the opportune moment to get past Esteban Ocon. So Oscar Piastri back up into 6th place then, would still be 3 points behind Lando Norris in the championship. Piastri's pitted, and he's back to where he started, really. Ollie Behrman in 4th place, just outside of the podium positions. And I think Max Verstappen might have gained just enough on Ollie Behrman to snag that podium from him. There's 22 laps left to go, and Ollie Behrman is going to have to gain nearly a second a lap on Max Verstappen to get himself back up into podium contention. Let's see what Ollie Behrman can do from here. And Oscar Piastri is also chasing down the rear end of George Russell. They're all on basically identical tyres at this point, though. Antonelli and Hamilton on exactly the same tyres as Oscar Piastri. George Russell 1 lap younger soft compound tyres. Esteban Ocon has dropped down to 9th place on his mediums. And Isaac Hadjar is running in the final point scoring place. The Frenchman currently in 10th. 21 laps left to go. Lando Norris has just overtaken Lance Stroll's Aston Martin and is 23 seconds ahead of Charles Leclerc. But Charles Leclerc also has a very comfortable 2nd place ahead of him as well. 12 seconds to Max Verstappen behind. Verstappen was actually 9/10 of a second quicker than Charles Leclerc. Verstappen can't do it, can he? Surely Verstappen can't be quick enough to get past Charles Leclerc from this point in the Grand Prix. Leclerc's only on 19-lap-old medium tyres. Verstappen's on 16-lap-old softs. He was 9/10 of a second quicker, was Verstappen. I'll be honest, I haven't been keeping an eye on Max Verstappen's delta up until that point. So let's have a little look. George Russell has just gone quickest of anybody in this Grand Prix. George Russell now a second behind Ollie Behrman. And we were all dreaming of an Ollie Behrman podium position. He has gone 0.2 of a second quicker than Max Verstappen. It's not quite enough to catch up to the back of him. But Ollie Behrman is also now going to be under pressure from the big boys behind Russell and Piastri. And Charles Leclerc, this is my pace for info. And Ferrari saying, no worries, we're going to stay out until the end. So Ferrari think that they've got the pace to stay ahead of Verstappen. To be fair, if Charles Leclerc pitted now, he would only come out behind Verstappen, but then he gives track position to the Dutchman. So it's a gamble from Ferrari here. Depends whether they think this medium tyre will go long enough. Charles Leclerc, a 121.9. Max Verstappen, a 121.2. So that gap now down to 11.3 seconds. Verstappen's going to be within striking distance if he can keep this pace up. Don't say it. Don't want Max on the podium. Max not only looking like he could get a podium, Max is looking like he might be in contention for 2nd place here, which would be much, much better for him in terms of the championship standings. Would gain him another 3 points and would mean he wouldn't be as far adrift. Remember, he came into this race 40 points off the championship leader. It doesn't matter which McLaren it is. As long as he's gaining on the championship leader, then he is still in championship contention, and he would be closer than 40 points to the championship leader. I think as it stands, what would he be on? 321. So he'd be 36 points adrift of the championship leader, which would be Lando Norris. I think Max would have gotten past Behrman. I feel sorry for Behrman. I know I hyped him up, but I just think in that middle part of the race, Max Verstappen, in particular, the one-stop strategy does seem to be the better one. And Verstappen starting on the medium tyre, going onto the soft, just the pace that he's got is in a completely different zone to the kind of Haas cars, isn't it? The farewell to Behrman podium does feel like, yeah, it's over and done. Ollie Behrman now under pressure from George Russell behind. Oscar Piastri struggling though. Piastri now 3.5 seconds adrift of Russell. Not looking very happy at all. The best thing that could happen here for Oscar Piastri is for these two to collide. Ollie Behrman and George Russell just need to wipe themselves out. And Behrman has been in a couple of tussles this year. He's picked up some penalty points as Ollie Behrman. So it's not out of the question. But I think Ollie Behrman will know, even if George Russell gets past him, the championship points that are on the line for the Haas team would be absolutely incredible. Even with a 5th place finish rather than a 4th place finish, So I don't think Behrman is going to put up a ridiculous defense here if George Russell does just have the better pace. George Russell, though, got to pass Behrman here, hasn't he? He talked a lot of big talk to George Russell when he was stuck behind Kimi Antonelli. To be fair, he probably would be ahead of Ollie Behrman right now if his pace was good enough. As he was saying, he was stuck behind Antonelli for 10 laps before the Mercedes team decided to make the switch. I think they made the switch just because George Russell was overheating, though. I don't think they made the switch because of the pace advantage that George Russell said that he had. Oscar Piastri also trying to gain on the back of them. Lando Norris now catching up to the back of Alex Albon. So Stroll, Gasly, Colapinto, the three drivers that have been lapped so far. 25-second lead, remember, Lando Norris has. Alonso, Hulkenberg, Lawson, the three drivers that have dropped out of the race. Max Verstappen, 121.2, 121.9 from Leclerc again. There's another 7 tenths. We're now within 10 seconds, Max Verstappen. 17 laps left to go. Going to be very tight. Max Verstappen is very much in touching distance now. Right at the end of this Grand Prix. It's just whether he's got enough left in those tyres at the end to also be able to go for a move. But if any driver can do it, you'd put your money on Max Verstappen, wouldn't you? It's that's just have an ability to turn up when he needs to, just Verstappen. And we were looking at a 5th place qualifying from him and going, is that championship kind of over? We know that he has to be basically perfect to close in the 40-point gap that he had to Oscar Piastri. It's now going to be a 36-point gap to Lando Norris. Cut that to 33 to Lando Norris if he can get past Charles Leclerc. And a 33-point gap with 4 races to go. It becomes Lando Norris versus Max Verstappen for the championship. Very, very tasty indeed. 36 points, not a massive difference. 3 points to Max Verstappen here could be crucial. Gabriel Bortoleto is also flying right now. He's within a tenth of a second, within a second of a second of Isaac Hadjar for that final point scoring place. Hadjar with slightly scrubbed softs. Bortoleto with fresh softs, and they're slightly younger as well. 23 laps completed for Hadjar. Just the 17 laps completed for Bortoleto. Bortoleto could be on for a point-scoring place here, which would be really, really good from him, as the Stakes Sauber car looked absolutely nowhere yesterday in terms of qualifying. But Bortoleto has been so impressive this season. It's going to go down like... Again, I was talking about how good Bortoleto is and that he might be my driver of the... or rookie of the season so far, I should say. But Ollie Behrman now with a 4th place finish might also, swing some things in his favour. Ollie Behrman now outside of the DRS range of George Russell. He's put George Russell back at arm's length. And Oscar Piastri even struggling to catch up to the back of the Mercedes car. So Behrman, if not a podium, a 4th place finish is absolutely sublime from Oliver. And Oscar Piastri, though, gained significantly on the back of George Russell. Piastri also just needs all the points he can get. As I say, if he gets up in front of George Russell here, Piastri, he would be 1 point behind his teammate in the championship. So he would still lose out to Lando Norris in terms of championship position with Oscar Piastri if he finishes 5th. Could he finish 4th? If he finishes 4th, he's still got the championship lead as Oscar Piastri. That's what's at play for the Australian. Max Verstappen has gained again on Charles Leclerc. A 122 dead from Charles Leclerc, 121.1 from Verstappen. You got to give it to him. He's consistent. It is 121 after 121 for Max Verstappen. 121.1, I should say. Comes across the start-finish line again. 121.2 this time from Max Verstappen. But 121.8 from Charles Leclerc means that he's still closing that gap. He's within 8 seconds of Charles Leclerc now, with 15 laps left to go. Keep an eye on that gap between Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen. It's going to get very tasty indeed. But the tastier battle right now is between George Russell and Oscar Piastri. Piastri is within DRS range of George Russell once again. We saw Piastri frustrated behind Russell in this middle part of the Grand Prix. Russell complaining on the radio that he had Piastri behind him and causing problems. And Carlos Sainz's pit for drive through penalty. So Carlos Sainz going through and serving that penalty that he had. Also swapping around the tyres. Not looking like Carlos Sainz is going to be in the point scoring places. It looked like at one point he might just have the pace, but I think those tyres and that 5-second penalty just not quite playing into the Williams' favour this time around. Tsunoda has also dropped outside of the point scoring places. Gabriel Bortoleto looking the most likely to cause Isaac Hadjar a problem. Esteban Ocon a couple of seconds up the road. So Haas look like they could be on for a historic double points scoring finish. And a really, really solid point scoring finish from Ollie Behrman. Here comes Charles Leclerc versus Max Verstappen, down to 7 seconds. And could be within the next sort of 6-7 laps, I would say. We're going to have, about 6 or 7 laps left as Max Verstappen is going to catch the back of Charles Leclerc, I think. Going to get very, very close indeed, isn't it? I think everything is playing into Max Verstappen here, giving it a go at least, right? And just absolutely going a hell for leather right at the end of this Grand Prix and going for a dive bomb on Charles Leclerc. It's either going to work and he's going to absolutely fly, or he's going to smash into Charles Leclerc. It's going to be very all or nothing Max Verstappen, isn't it? As we have come accustomed to when it comes to Max, he is a very all or nothing driver. 6.5 seconds behind Charles Leclerc. Ollie Behrman, 13 seconds adrift in 4th place. George Russell, 1.2 seconds behind. I think just realizing now that he needs to step it up a touch, because if he can get back within DRS range of Ollie Behrman, he can keep Oscar Piastri at bay a little bit easier. Not that Piastri is looking ridiculously close to the back of George Russell. He's 0.7 of a second adrift as they come around the final couple of corners. So not within striking distance right now, but he's going to have the DRS and the slipstream down towards turn 1. Going to have to be a real dive bomb from Oscar Piastri if he's going to try and make a move now. Decides against it. Possibly down towards turn 4, depending on the line that he can take through turns 2 and 3. It's a little bit closer to the back of George Russell than he has been before. So Piastri can follow George Russell down to turn 4, but isn't close enough to really make a maneuver. Lando Norris leads by 27.9 seconds. Is utterly ridiculous, isn't it? To look at that gap. Lando Norris in a completely different universe of his own this weekend. Max Verstappen gaining on Charles Leclerc. 5.7 seconds now the gap. A 121.9 from Max last time around. Here comes Charles Leclerc, a 122.0. Let's see what Max Verstappen can do. Just coming around turn 17, a 121.2. So another 0.8 of a second chunked off of that second place from Charles Leclerc. It's going to be close. It's going to be very close indeed. 12 laps left to go for the racers fighting for the podium positions. Ollie Behrman, George Russell, Oscar Piastri, now Kimi Antonelli come across the start-finish line on the leading lap as well. Piastri closer than Russell than he was before. Piastri DRS wide open, gets into the slipstream of the Mercedes car, pulls over to the inside, and Piastri's going to go for it. It's going to be very tight indeed. George Russell pulls over. Oh my goodness me, and it's a great move from Oscar Piastri. George Russell did everything he could to make it as awkward as humanly possible for Piastri. Piastri then has the DRS down towards turn 4, breaks the toe as well, moves over, and Piastri up into 5th place. In terms of the championship then, that would put Piastri 1 point behind Lando Norris on 356, Lando Norris 357. The championship would still change hands at this point. Max Verstappen would still be 321, so 36 points adrift of Lando Norris. Again, remember, he came into this weekend 40 points behind the championship leader. would still gain 4 points technically on the championship leader. It's just that the championship leader would be a different driver. Here comes Oscar Piastri. Past George Russell, the replay of it, right under the rear wing of George Russell. Very late move over to the right-hand side of the track from Piastri, and a great maneuver from the Australian. Behrman keep Oscar behind. It's going to be tight. 2.7 seconds the gap between Piastri and Behrman. Piastri lost a little bit of time to Ollie Behrman, obviously in that tussle with George Russell. And now is looking at trying to gain one more position for Piastri, would keep him in the championship lead. He'd still lose time. And Kimi Antonelli on the radio, we should invert positions now. Antonelli, knowing who butters his bread, he's like, hang on, I gave George Russell an opportunity at fighting with Ollie Behrman. He's failed. Give me that position back. Let's see if George Russell plays the team player now. I mean, George Russell should have been given that position like 10 laps earlier. If they were really going to swap the drivers around, I think he would have given that position 10 laps before. But George Russell and Antonelli told they can go racing, then eventually swap positions, then kind of hasn't played into George Russell's favour. Antonelli wants that position back. Lewis Hamilton down in 8th place, Esteban Ocon still running in 9th, and Isaac Hadjar still has been able to keep Gabriel Bortoleto behind. Very, very solid defensive driving from Isaac Hadjar. We're not seeing much of it on the stream, but looking at the track map, you can see Bortoleto right underneath the rear wing of Isaac Hadjar, and Hadjar is doing a sublime job at just keeping Bortoleto at arm's distance as they come through this final sector, so that when they go down towards turn 1, Bortoleto isn't quite within range. See, as they come around the final corner, Bortoleto falls to like just about 7 tenths behind Isaac Hadjar, which is just enough to keep him outside of the range where he can go for an attack. As I say that, Bortoleto might go for it now. He's very late on the brakes as Bortoleto, and he's going to go for it. Oh my goodness me. Bortoleto, what a move that is. Wow, he was not within striking distance in terms of what we normally see in terms of the sort of tenths of a second that you need to be behind the driver in front. But that is a very, very good move from Gabriel Bortoleto, and a very, very significant move. That gets him up into 10th place, and of course scores him a point to put him on 19 for the season. It's not quite the 32 that Ollie Behrman is looking at, considering they've been going back and forth, Ollie Behrman and Gabriel Bortoleto, in the points, you know. It was looking at who was going to finish 18th or 19th between those two. Ollie Behrman now putting himself up into 13th place in the standings. Just goes to show one incredible drive from a midfield driver can completely change your season around. And George Russell and Kimi Antonelli have also made the swap whilst I was watching Gabriel Bortoleto there. Antonelli back up into 6th place, George Russell down into 7th. And quite a tight move from Gabriel Bortoleto. Went around the outside of turn 1 as well, then just snuck up the inside of turn 2. Of course, the Formula 2 rivals last year for the championship, him and Hadjar. Bortoleto came out on top there, and Bortoleto on top once again, up into 10th place. The Brazilian is on fire this afternoon. Here comes Yuki Tsunoda, also making a move on Isaac Hadjar. It's going from bad to worse for the Frenchman, as Yuki Tsunoda also now moves up into 11th place. Max Verstappen on the radio. This is an insane stint, Max. Just finish it off. I mean, GP, he's not wrong. Max Verstappen now down to 3.3 seconds from Charles Leclerc. His pace has dropped just a tiny little bit. 122 dead from Charles Leclerc, as we've kind of been seeing, a 121.4 from Max Verstappen. So he's lost a couple of tenths of a second as Verstappen in recent laps, but we're 8 laps left to go. Still a 3-second gap between the two of them. I thought Max Verstappen might be within striking distance within the next couple of laps. I think it's now going to be sort of another 3 or 4 before Max Verstappen is really within that distance to be able to have a go. And I mean, it's going to be very tight indeed. Max Verstappen currently was scored 15 points for the weekend. That would put him 36 behind Lando Norris, our new championship leader. Another 3 points on the board cuts that to just 33 points. Still 4 races and 2 sprint races left to go. We head to Brazil in a couple of weekends. We know what Max Verstappen can do when he is at the Brazilian Grand Prix. Thank you guys so much. There's lots of new subscribers coming in. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 150,000 subscribers before the end of the season. We're going to be live for every single one of those sprint races and Grand Prix for the rest of the season. So if you want to join us, make sure you've hit that subscribe button. If you're on Twitch, make sure you've hit the follow button as well. And here comes Alex Albon on Isaac Hadjar, and I think Hadjar's tyres have just completely fallen off a cliff as Alex Albon now also moves past the Racing Bulls car, and he slows down to let Lando Norris past Isaac Hadjar. Now the next driver to be lapped by Lando Norris, and Norris catching the back of Albon and Tsunoda. This is going to play quite nicely into Gabriel Bortoletto's hands, because Yuki Tsunoda is going to get caught up by Lando Norris and is going to have to slow down to let the McLaren past. If Bortoletto can do it in just a slightly better way, we have actually seen that, you know, making sure that the driver getting past under blue flag conditions can actually be an advantage if you play it right. Max Verstappen, 2.6 seconds adrift of Charles Leclerc now as Lando Norris comes to start lap 66 of this Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, 121.4 last time around. Let's watch Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen come around this final sector then. Just coming through turn 13 and 14 on your screens right now, sort of top left corner of the track map. And Charles Leclerc coming around 16, 17. Let's see what the gap is like and the track times are. So 121.9 from Charles Leclerc, 121.5 from Max Verstappen. So only 0.4 of a second that time around. And are those soft compound tyres now starting to just scream a little bit harder for Max Verstappen? 2.5 seconds the gap, 6 laps left to go. He needs a little bit more from this Red Bull car. Charles Leclerc, though, is going to do absolutely everything he can. It was the complete other way around, wasn't it, last weekend? Charles Leclerc was causing Lando Norris the problems and holding Lando Norris at bay for so long, which allowed Max Verstappen the easy victory. Not saying that Charles Leclerc has held up Max Verstappen or that Max Verstappen would have anywhere close to Lando Norris this time around, but the roles have reversed. This time it's Charles Leclerc holding up Max Verstappen. Suddenly the Monegasque playing a pretty significant role in this championship battle, isn't he? As we've headed into the last couple of races. 4 races still to come, though. And I'm sure Charles Leclerc will want to be in the mix for the podium places in those as well. Remember, Ferrari yet to win a Grand Prix in 2025. We've seen McLaren, of course, Red Bull, of course, even Mercedes standing at the top step of the podium. Charles Leclerc, 4 races to go. Vegas, Qatar, Abu Dhabi. I'll have to wait and see. Lando Norris, though, continues on, now catching the back of Yuki Tsunoda on lap 67. Charles Leclerc was a little bit slower than Verstappen again. It's another 0.5 of a second chomped out of that second place from Max Verstappen. Now within 2 seconds of the only Ferrari driver that has scored a podium so far this season. Current vote for driver of the day is Ollie Behrman on 40% of the vote. Pretty difficult one to argue with that, isn't it? As Ollie Behrman is continuing to hold Oscar Piastri, the current championship lead, until now at bay. Piastri may still end the race and lead the championship if he overtakes Behrman. That is exactly the case. Shall we have a look at the championship standings for you? I can shuffle that around. I don't want to show it for too long because I still want to keep an eye on the gap between Verstappen and Leclerc, which is now down to 1.3 seconds. But at this moment in time, Lando Norris would gain 25 points. He'd be on 357. Piastri would be on 356, so he needs 1 more position gain, does Piastri, to maintain the championship lead. Otherwise, he would lose it by just 1 point to his teammate. Max Verstappen would be 36 points adrift of Norris, so again, would be closer to the championship lead than he was at the beginning of this weekend. He was 40 points adrift of Piastri before this Grand Prix started, but it's a new McLaren that he is chasing for the title. And we've got McLaren scoring 35 points. Ferrari would move ahead of Mercedes, 22 points scored for Ferrari. And the big mover at the bottom, Ollie Behrman, up 12 points, up 5 places into 13th. Here we go then. Max Verstappen, 1.4 seconds adrift of Charles Leclerc. The last lap times are 122.2 from Charles Leclerc, a 121.5 from Max Verstappen. So much more like the lap times that Verstappen needs. And the thing is, the DRS is also a huge factor here. We've got 3 laps left to go as Lando Norris comes across the start-finish line. Leclerc and Verstappen sort of 3.5 laps left to go as they enter the final sector now. Charles Leclerc coming around turn 12. Verstappen just needs a couple attempts in turn 12 and 13 so that he can be within the DRS point now. Here's the DRS detection point at turn 15. It's going to be very tight. I think he's just outside of the DRS zone as Max Verstappen. I think he was just over a second behind. Let's have a little look at the onboard from the Red Bull. Can I see his thumb hit that DRS button? I don't think I did. I don't think he is within the DRS range, but he will be next lap. So he's going to have 3 laps. Is Max Verstappen within the DRS range of Charles Leclerc ahead of him? It's going to be very tight indeed. Oscar Piastri now looking at the back of Ollie Bearman as well. We've got a couple of battles yet to play out. Bearman is now under pressure from Piastri. Piastri 0.4 of a second behind the Haas. And the Haas now in the dirty air of the 2 Alpine cars ahead. And Oscar Piastri is also going to have to deal with Colapinto and Gasly being slightly in the way here. Antonelli and Russell behind. Nowhere near. So Piastri doesn't have to worry about the 2 Mercedes cars. Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen, though, continuing on. They're coming around towards the final sector again. Let's see if the DRS range is in play. 2 laps left to go for Lando Norris. Oh, and there is a slow-moving Carlos Sainz in the final sector. Carlos Sainz, I think, has come to a standstill in the stadium, and I think that is going to kill any opportunity of any kind of overtaking from Piastri or Verstappen. Why has Carlos Sainz come to a stop right at the end of the stadium section? Max Verstappen is within DRS, though. DRS is open for Max Verstappen. I thought he was going to be outside of DRS range because of the yellow flag. Maybe he used it to his favour. Here comes Verstappen. Has a little look at Charles Leclerc. Not enough this time around. It's going to be a final lap manoeuvre from Charles Leclerc. If he can do anything about it, Charles Leclerc has to use everything that he's got. Full battery pack for the Ferrari. Here comes the DRS of Max Verstappen down towards turn 4. Charles Leclerc moves to the outside to take the wider line through it and keeps Max Verstappen at bay. Lando Norris then coming through the final sector is going to start the final lap of the Grand Prix. Oh, and it's a safety car. Virtual safety car. Virtual safety car to try and move Carlos Sainz's car. It was in the final sector, and that is an absolute nightmare scenario for both Verstappen and Piastri. Piastri is still behind Bearman, and Verstappen is going to be stuck behind Leclerc. Virtual safety car is out. Are they going to be able to get the virtual safety car done before Max Verstappen gets to the DRS zone down towards turn 1? I don't think they will. Final lap started for Lando Norris. He's at turn 1 right now. Still under the virtual safety car conditions. Verstappen and Leclerc coming through the stadium section, and Verstappen has done everything perfectly throughout this final stint. And Carlos Sainz is buried in the wall. He's moved his Williams car out of the way. Virtual safety car still at bay then, and Charles Leclerc slows himself down to keep Max Verstappen behind. Verstappen can't overtake because of the virtual safety car conditions. And we've been robbed of a battle here, lads. We are not going to get to see whether or not Max Verstappen would have gone for a final lap lunge on Charles Leclerc. The virtual safety car still out. And Oscar Piastri has fallen quite far adrift of Bearman in the virtual safety car as well. Max Verstappen, virtual safety car ending. Down towards turn 4, is Verstappen going to go for a move in like a crazy part of the lap? Virtual safety car is ending. Verstappen is right underneath the rear wing of Charles Leclerc, but they have gone through turn 4 and turn 5. So Verstappen is going to have to go for a move somewhere ridiculous if he is going to take that second place from Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris, though, let's look at the leader right now. He's coming around the final corner, and Lando Norris does take the victory here in Mexico by 35 seconds from Charles Leclerc behind in second place. It is dominant. It is ridiculous. It is Lando Norris stamping his authority on the championship as he takes the championship lead for the first time since the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix when it fell into the hands of Oscar Piastri. Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen still battling as they come through the stadium, but there's nowhere for Verstappen to make the overtaking maneuver, and Verstappen just one lap more and he might have been able to go for second place, but it's going to be Charles Leclerc on the second step of the podium with Max Verstappen in third spot. Ollie Behrman, a drive for the ages from the rookie. A fourth place finish for Ollie Behrman is sublime. He keeps Piastri at bay, and that means Piastri does drop to second place in the Drivers' Championship. Antonelli and Russell come home in 6th and 7th place. Lewis Hamilton demoted down to 8th. Remember, Hamilton was running in the podium places. That 10-second penalty for Hamilton really did cost him dearly. Esteban Ocon is looking like he's going to make it a double points finish for Haas. They're just making their way around the final couple of corners. And Gabriel Bortoleto with the final points scoring place. Yuki Tsunoda, the best of the drivers outside of the points, in 11th. Alex Albon, Isaac Hadjar, Lance Stroll, Pierre Gasly and Franco Colapinto finished the Grand Prix a lap behind the leading car. Carlos Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Nico Hülkenberg and Liam Lawson dropping out of the Grand Prix. We were just Carlos Sainz there really stole any opportunity of that being a properly dramatic finish, didn't he? Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri can both feel a little bit hard done by there. Both of them were going for last lap maneuvers on the car ahead. And for Piastri in particular, now drops to second place in the standings. 356 points. Not good enough to be top. 357 in the favour of Lando Norris. Ferrari also with a solid double points finish means they score 22, move up to second place in the constructors' standings, displacing Mercedes down to third. And Haas also move up a place in the constructor standings. They move above Kick Sauber as Ollie Behrman's fourth place finish shoots them up the table. 14 points scored for the Haas team this weekend. And Ollie Behrman, the big mover at the bottom as well, up to 13th place in the drivers' standings. Thank you guys so much for watching. Massively appreciate you spending the Mexico Grand Prix with me. I know that there are many options of streams that you can watch and join us with. Thank you to all of the guys over on Twitch. We've hit the Twitch goal. We are over 700 followers on Twitch. Thank you guys so much for all of your support on Twitch this season. We have set that 700 as a sort of speculative shot, and we've smashed past it. Thank you for all of the subscriptions over on Twitch as well. If you are new, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, subscribe over on Twitch. If you've got Twitch Prime, completely free. Just head over there, use your Twitch Prime and your Amazon Prime. Get that completely and utterly free. It's Jeff Bezos' money, so you might as well use it. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. I'm going to be live in about 5 minutes time once again for the members only post-race show. So if you want to join us for that, become a member of the YouTube channel. But Lando Norris takes top spot, and Lando Norris moves to the top of the Drivers' Championship. Max Verstappen closes the gap, though. He was 40 points behind the top of the Drivers' standings. He's 36 points behind the top of the Drivers' standings now. It's 4 points that could be vital, but he will not feel happy. He knew there was another 3 points up for grabs and a second place finish that was available to him. Ollie Behrman shakes the hands of the Ferrari mechanics. It is an ominous result, isn't it? If that man can get himself into a Ferrari car, are we looking at the driver that can finally turn Ferrari's fortunes around? We'll have to wait and see. It'll be a good few seasons before we see Behrman in the Scuderia. My goodness me, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you guys so much. As I say, I'll be live for members in a moment's time. If you are a member, I will see you then. If not, I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time for the Brazilian Grand Prix.